Welcome back to Teenage Nightmares, the place that drags you deeper into the world of the unknown. In tonight's episode, Darren shares a night that still haunts him. The night he and a few friends explored a house they should have left alone. So turn the lights down, get comfortable, and prepare for the kind of tale that lingers in the dark. Hello, my name is Darren, and my story takes place a few years ago, during the winter of 2016. I was hanging out with the only two friends I had, Trevor and Terrence. We were doing what we usually did on winter weekends, hanging out in Trevor's basement, binge-watching Ghost Adventures. We'd been fans of the show for years, always talking about doing our own ghost hunt someday. When I brought it up that night, I was just making conversation like usual. But this time, Trevor's face lit up with genuine excitement. He went on to tell Terrence and me that his dad, who was a contractor, had been working on a house he considered to be creepy. He said whenever he was there alone, he'd hear strange noises. He even swore he saw a door slam shut by itself. I cut him off and asked if there was any way we could check the place out. Trevor just smirked and said, "I know where the keys are. We could go tonight." It was almost midnight, and I was definitely nervous. But I didn't want to ruin something we'd always talked about doing. Trevor grabbed the keys, and the three of us piled into my old station wagon and hit the road. It was fun at first, until we got within a few miles of the house. The closer we got, the more isolated everything felt. We went from streets lined with houses and streetlights to dark wooded roads with nothing but shadows on either side. That's when I asked Trevor if this was even safe. He shrugged and said, "No one's lived there in over 10 years. The last family that did, the husband murdered his wife and kids. He's serving life." My heart sank. I had no idea the house had a history like that, but it felt too late to back out now. We continued the drive, and within a few minutes, we were there. The three of us stepped out of the car and just stood there, staring at the old Victorian-style home. None of us wanted to be the first to walk in, but Terrence, being the fearless one of the group, walked right up to the front door and held out his hand, and asked Trevor for the keys. Trevor handed them over, and Terrence unlocked the door. Then the three of us walked inside. Immediately, I felt something, some sort of heavy presence. I still can't explain it to this day, but I know what I felt. I wish I could go back in time and stop myself from walking any further into that house. But part of me was excited. We were finally doing a real investigation. So I grabbed the equipment we'd collected over the years. Nothing special, just a few voice recorders and one old camera with night vision. We decided to start in the living room. I set up the camera on a shelf and placed a voice recorder on the floor. Then we began asking questions. Trevor went first, asking if the family that was tragically murdered in the house was still around. At first, there was nothing. No voices, no movement. But after a few minutes, we all heard it, footsteps, coming from the top of the stairs. We turned and stared, expecting to see someone walking down from the second floor. But there was no one there, just the empty staircase. I put all of my fear to the side and asked, "Is that you?" And as soon as the words left my mouth, we heard a strange whisper, low and quick, coming from the direction of the stairs. I froze, my whole body locked up with fear. Terrence, on the other hand, got even more excited. He started asking more questions, asking whatever was in the house to make another noise. He said, "If you're here, knock on the wall." A few seconds passed. Then 3 clear and distinct knocks echoed through the room. And just like that, the look of excitement on Terrence's face disappeared. I was ready to leave, but Trevor looked at both Terrence and me and said, "This is exactly what we were looking for. We're getting a response. We can't back out now." I stupidly nodded in agreement, and so did Terrence. Trevor then suggested we head upstairs to ask some questions up there. So, we grabbed our equipment and made our way to the second floor of the house, which would turn out to be a huge mistake. We set up in the master bedroom. The place was freezing cold, and the air felt even heavier than it did downstairs. I began by asking if anyone was in the room with us, and just a few seconds later, something knocked on the wall, right behind us. I jumped, completely startled by what I just heard. I turned to Trevor and said, "Can we please go now?" He looked at me and said, "Let's just stay a few more minutes. Then we'll go home and check the voice recordings. We might have caught something." I hesitated but nodded, and we started asking more questions, one of them being for it to show itself. And not even a few minutes later, I saw something. It walked past the hallway toward the room we were in. I asked the two of them if they saw it, but they didn't need to answer. The looks on their faces told me everything. Then out of nowhere, Terrence was suddenly shoved to the ground, pinned down by something none of us could see. Before he could even react, Trevor and I grabbed onto him, trying to pull him up. We were terrified that something was going to drag him away. Then whatever was in that room began to growl. The sounds it made were inhumane. Right then, the three of us knew. This wasn't just some ordinary haunting. Whatever was in that room with us was evil, and it wanted to hurt us. I shouted for it to let him go, and to my surprise it did. Terrence scrambled back to his feet, and I yelled for them both to run, as I bolted for the stairs. But before I could reach the bottom, something shoved me. I tumbled down, hitting the last few steps before landing flat on the ground. Thankfully, I'd only been 6 or 7 steps from the floor. Any higher, and I could have been seriously injured. Trevor and Terrence were right behind me. They rushed over and helped me up, both of them asking if I was okay. I got up nodding and gasping, telling them I just needed to get out of that damned house. We made our way to the door, but it wouldn't budge. It was like someone was holding it shut from the outside. Then came the footsteps again. Only this time, they were coming down the stairs, followed by that same horrifying growl. Whatever was up there, it was coming for us. In that moment, I thought we were done for. But luckily Trevor didn't freeze. He grabbed a heavy object and smashed one of the large, old pitch windows near the front room. The three of us jumped through and sprinted for the station wagon. We piled in, and I turned the key. Nothing. Tried again. Still nothing. The engine just wouldn't turn over. But at least we were out of the house. We thought we were safe, until we saw it. It was standing at the very window we'd just climbed out of. Its face, grotesque, twisted, the kind of face you don't forget. And it was smiling. That smile is still burned into my memory. Then it started climbing out the window, walking straight toward us. Trevor screamed for me to start the car. I turned the key again. Nothing. Again, nothing. The thing was moving fast. It was almost at the car. And finally, on what must have been the 5th or 6th try, the engine roared to life. I slammed my foot on the gas and peeled out of there, desperate to leave whatever that thing was far behind. None of us said a word the entire ride home. We pulled into Trevor's driveway and decided to stay together for the night. None of us wanted to be alone. Thankfully, the rest of the night was quiet. We still go on investigations just as a hobby, but nothing has ever come close to what we experienced that dreadful night. And I would never want to experience it again, and to whatever was in that house. I hope you never get out. I hope you've enjoyed this Teenage Nightmares original. If you're into creepy stories, true crime, and all things unsettling, make sure to hit that subscribe button. That's exactly the kind of videos I bring you every week.